My entire friend group has cut me off after I reported my best friend to CPS for drinking while pregnant, and I'm being called a monster. Look, before everyone jumps down my throat, let me just say this whole situation has completely destroyed my life. I'm writing this from my sister's spare bedroom because I literally can't go home right now. My phone has 200 plus messages calling me everything from a snitch to an evil person who ruined a family. But I need to know, did I really cross a line here? Or did I do the right thing even though everyone hates me for it? And hey, if you're watching this story unfold on Who's the Villain, AITA, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like if you want to see how this absolute dumpster fire plays out. Also, drop a comment letting me know what city you're watching from. I'm curious if people from different places see this differently, you know? Okay, so context. I'm Sarah, 28F, and my best friend since college is Amanda, 31F. We've been inseparable for 10 years. I'm talking, we lived together for 4 years after graduation, we were each other's maids of honor, we literally talked every single day. She's the person who held my hair when I had food poisoning, who helped me leave my toxic ex, who I called at 3 a.m. when my dad died. We weren't just friends, we were family. Amanda got married 3 years ago to this guy Marcus, 33M. I'll be honest, I never loved him for her. He's one of those guys who's charming at parties but kind of controlling behind closed doors. Like, he'd make these jokes about Amanda's weight or her career choices that weren't really jokes, you know. But Amanda seemed happy enough, and it wasn't my place to say anything beyond the one time I gently asked if she was okay, and she insisted everything was fine. Last year, Amanda told me she was pregnant. She was absolutely glowing, so excited. This was her first baby, and she'd been trying for almost 2 years. I was thrilled for her. I bought her the first onesie. I started planning the baby shower, the whole thing. She asked me to be the godmother, and I ugly cried for like 20 minutes. Here's where things started getting weird. Around month 4 of her pregnancy, I noticed Amanda seemed off. She was stressed, snapping at people, which wasn't like her. I figured it was pregnancy hormones or whatever. But then one night, about 5 months ago, she was 6 months pregnant at this point. We were supposed to have a girls' night at her place. Just me, Amanda, and our other close friend Jess, 29F. I got there early because Amanda had texted me to come help set up. When I walked in, she was in the kitchen, and I swear to God she was pouring herself a glass of wine. Not like a tiny splash, like a full glass. I literally froze in the doorway. "Amanda, what are you doing?" I asked. She looked up, and I'll never forget the look on her face. Defensive, but also kind of resigned. "Sarah, don't start." "Don't start? You're 6 months pregnant." She set the bottle down hard. "My doctor said an occasional glass is fine. 1 glass won't hurt anything." "An occasional glass? How often is occasional?" I was trying to keep my voice level, but I could feel my heart pounding. "That's really none of your business, Sarah." That's when Jess walked in, and the whole conversation got dropped because Amanda literally just changed the subject and acted like nothing happened. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night I barely slept. I kept seeing her pour that glass, the way she said it so casually, like it was no big deal. The next day, I did what I thought was the right thing. I called her. "Hey, about last night. I'm worried about you. Are you really drinking during pregnancy?" She sighed, that annoyed sigh she does. "Sarah, I appreciate your concern, but I'm fine. I've done my research, I've talked to my doctor, and you need to trust that I know what I'm doing with my baby." "But Amanda, everything I've read says there's no safe amount of alcohol during pregnancy. It can cause fetal alcohol syndrome." "Oh my God, Sarah. 1 glass of wine is not going to cause FAS. Do you know how many European women drink moderately during pregnancy and have perfectly healthy babies? You're being ridiculous and judgmental." I backed off at that point because I didn't want to fight with her, but I started paying more attention. Over the next few weeks, I noticed things. Like, we'd go out to dinner with the group, and she'd always order a cocktail, then claim it was virgin, but I swear I could smell the alcohol. Or I'd come over, and there would be empty wine bottles in the recycling that definitely weren't there 2 days before when I'd last visited. I tried talking to Marcus about it once. Bad idea. He basically told me to mind my own business and that Amanda was under a lot of stress and deserved to relax how she wanted. Then he said something that really stuck with me. "Not everyone follows the American helicopter pregnancy rules, Sarah. Lighten up." At Amanda's baby shower 2 months ago, she was 8 months pregnant then, I watched her drink what she claimed was sparkling cider from a champagne flute. But when I went to the kitchen later, I found champagne bottles in the recycling. She'd been drinking actual champagne at her own baby shower, while 8 months pregnant. That's when I took photos. I know that sounds horrible, but I took pictures of the bottles because I was starting to feel like I was going crazy. Everyone else at the shower acted like everything was normal. Was I being paranoid? Was I overreacting? I talked to my sister, who has 2 kids, about it without naming names. She was horrified. "Sarah, if someone is regularly drinking during pregnancy, especially that far along, that baby is at serious risk. Fetal alcohol spectrum disorders are permanent. That child could have learning disabilities, behavioral issues, physical abnormalities for their entire life." That conversation kept me up for 3 nights straight. I kept thinking about that baby, my future godchild, and what might happen to them because their mother couldn't stop drinking for 9 months. Then came the incident that made me do what I did. 3 weeks ago, I went to Amanda's house unannounced because I'd tried calling and texting, and she wasn't responding, which was unusual. I had a key. We'd always had keys to each other's places, so I let myself in. I know. I should have waited, but I was genuinely worried. Amanda was in the living room, and she was absolutely wasted. Like, slurring her words, could barely stand, drunk. At 9 months pregnant, there were 2 empty wine bottles on the coffee table. She looked at me with these glassy eyes and said, "Hey, Sarah, you want some? It's the good stuff Marcus bought." I literally felt my blood turn to ice. "Amanda, you need to go to the hospital right now." "Why? I'm fine. Baby's fine. Everyone needs to stop judging me." She was swaying on her feet. I called Marcus immediately. He came home from work, and when he saw the situation, he was furious. But at me. "What the hell are you doing here? Did you let yourself into our house? Marcus, look at her. She's drunk and 9 months pregnant. This isn't okay. Get out of my house, Sarah. Now. I'm not leaving until I know she's okay." That's when Amanda started crying, those messy drunk cries, saying I was ruining everything and that I was a terrible friend who always judged her and never supported her choices. Marcus literally physically escorted me to the door and told me I was no longer welcome in their home. I sat in my car outside their house for an hour, shaking. Then I did it. I called CPS and made a report. I told them I had witnessed a heavily pregnant woman drinking to intoxication, that this wasn't the first time, that I was concerned for the baby's welfare after birth. They took my statement, asked for details, and said they'd look into it. The next day, all hell broke loose. CPS showed up at Amanda's house. Marcus called me screaming that I had crossed an unforgivable line, that I'd destroyed their family, that Amanda was having a breakdown. Jess texted me asking what the hell was wrong with me. Our whole friend group started messaging, saying I'd betrayed Amanda, that what happens between a woman and her doctor is private, that I had no right to involve authorities. Amanda went into labor 2 days after the CPS visit. Premature, probably from the stress, according to everyone who's now blaming me. She had a baby girl, 3 O's, and from what I've heard through the grapevine, the baby had to stay in the NICU for a week. CPS apparently did an investigation at the hospital. They interviewed Amanda and Marcus. They did some kind of assessment on the baby. I don't know all the details, but I heard they found evidence of alcohol exposure. The baby is now home, but CPS is doing regular check-ins, and Amanda and Marcus have to take parenting classes, and Amanda has to go to substance abuse counseling. Amanda's mom called me a few days after the birth. She was crying, saying I'd humiliated her daughter, that Amanda was suffering from severe postpartum depression now, and it was my fault, that the whole family was traumatized by having CPS involved, and how dare I call myself Amanda's best friend. Here's what everyone keeps telling me. I violated Amanda's privacy and autonomy. I should have talked to her more instead of going straight to authorities. Lots of women drink during pregnancy and have healthy babies. The stress I caused probably hurt the baby more than any drinking. I'm a judgmental, controlling person with no kids of my own who has no right to tell a mother what to do. I destroyed my best friend's life over something that wasn't my business. I'm going to be responsible if Amanda hurts herself because of postpartum depression. Our entire friend group has sided with Amanda. I've been removed from group chats, uninvited from events, blocked on social media by at least a dozen people. My Instagram DMs are full of people I barely know, calling me horrible things. Someone even found out where I work and sent my boss an email calling me a snitch and saying I can't be trusted. I had to move out of my apartment temporarily because Marcus knows where I live, and some of his friends have been making vague threats. My sister is the only person who says I did the right thing, but even she thinks I maybe should have tried harder to talk to Amanda first or stage some kind of intervention. I haven't seen the baby. I don't even know her name. Amanda had me removed as godmother, obviously. The life I had 3 weeks ago is completely gone. But here's what nobody else saw. That little girl drunk out of her mind at 9 months pregnant. Those wine bottles. The months of watching my best friend drink throughout her pregnancy while everyone else either didn't notice or didn't care. And now there's a baby, my would-be godchild, who might have permanent damage because her mother couldn't stay sober for 9 months. I know I broke Amanda's trust. I know I went behind her back. I know I involved authorities in a deeply personal situation. But what was I supposed to do? Just watch and hope everything turned out fine? Let that baby be born potentially damaged because I didn't want to be that person? The thing is, I keep second-guessing myself. Was it really that bad? Was she really drinking enough to cause harm? Did I overreact? Should I have tried to get Marcus to help instead? Should I have talked to her doctor somehow? Was there literally any other option besides CPS? Or did I do exactly what I should have done, and everyone is mad at me because I held Amanda accountable when no one else would? I lost my best friend of 10 years. I lost my entire social circle. I might lose my job if this keeps escalating. My mental health is in the toilet. I cry every single day. But I also can't stop thinking about that baby and whether I might have saved her from a lifetime of preventable problems. I need to give you more background because people keep saying I don't understand the full picture. Amanda and I met freshman year of college when we were randomly assigned as roommates. We clicked instantly, like, within the first week, we knew we'd be lifelong friends. We had this tradition where every Sunday we'd make breakfast together and plan our week. 10 years of Sundays, you guys. That's over 500 breakfasts together. After college, we moved to the city together. We had this tiny apartment with a bathroom so small you literally couldn't open the door all the way if someone was sitting on the toilet. We were broke, eating ramen, working terrible entry-level jobs, but we were happy. We used to joke that we were basically married. When Amanda met Marcus at a work conference, I was genuinely excited for her. She'd had a string of bad relationships, and Marcus seemed different. He had a good job in finance, he was older, seemed more mature, and Amanda was absolutely smitten. Their first few months were like a romance novel. But then things shifted. It was subtle at first. Marcus didn't like that Amanda and I spent so much time together. He'd make comments like, "Don't you two ever get tired of each other? Or doesn't Sarah have her own friends?" Amanda started canceling our Sunday breakfasts. When we did hang out, she'd check her phone constantly, and I later learned it was Marcus. Texting, asking where she was and when she'd be home. One time, maybe 6 months into their relationship, Amanda showed up at my apartment at 11 p.m. crying. She and Marcus had gotten into a huge fight because she'd gone out for drinks with coworkers and hadn't told him. He'd called her 20 times in 3 hours. I told her that was a red flag, that healthy relationships don't involve that kind of monitoring. She defended him, saying he just loved her so much and worried about her. I should have pushed harder then. But I didn't want to be the friend who trashed her boyfriend, you know? I'd seen how those situations play out. The friend becomes the enemy, the boyfriend becomes more controlling, and the girl ends up isolated. So I backed off, stayed supportive, and hoped things would improve. They got engaged after a year. The proposal was elaborate. Marcus rented out this entire restaurant, had musicians, the works. It was beautiful. I pushed my concerns aside and focused on being happy for my best friend. I was her maid of honor, and I gave a speech at the wedding about how happy I was that she'd found her person. Looking back now, there were signs even then. At the rehearsal dinner, Marcus got irritated because Amanda wanted to sit with the bridesmaids for part of the evening. At the reception, he made a speech that included a joke about how he'd finally tamed Amanda and gotten her to settle down. Everyone laughed. I felt uncomfortable but said nothing. After the wedding, I saw even less of Amanda. She moved into Marcus's place, which became their place, and he made it clear he didn't like people just dropping by. I had to text in advance, and even then, half the time Amanda would cancel last minute. Our daily phone calls became weekly, then every other week, but we still texted constantly, and whenever we did manage to get together, it was like no time had passed. That's why when she told me she was pregnant, I was so thrilled. I thought maybe a baby would be the thing that brought her back to herself, you know? That she'd need her best friend again, and we'd be back to how we were. The pregnancy started out normal. She had terrible morning sickness, and I'd come over with ginger tea and crackers. We'd watch movies together while she felt miserable. It felt like old times. She started sharing pregnancy updates with me before anyone else. We'd text about baby names and nursery themes. Around month 3, she started talking about feeling trapped. She said she loved the baby already, but felt like she was losing herself. Marcus was being super controlling about what she ate, how much she exercised, everything. He'd hired a nutritionist and was monitoring her calorie intake. He didn't want her going out much because he worried about her being around sick people. I suggested she talk to him about loosening up a little, and she said she'd tried, but he insisted he was just protecting their baby. She seemed resigned to it, like this was just how things were now. The first time I suspected she was drinking, it was actually before that night I walked in on her. We'd gone to lunch about 5 months into her pregnancy, and when the waiter came by, she ordered an iced tea. But when it arrived, I could have sworn I smelled vodka. I asked, "Is there alcohol in that?" And she laughed and said, "Don't be crazy. I'm pregnant." I convinced myself I was being paranoid. But then it happened again and again. Little things that I kept explaining away because I didn't want to believe my best friend would do something so harmful. The night I walked in on her actively pouring wine, I couldn't deny it anymore. And her reaction, the defensiveness, the justifications, it scared me because it sounded like someone with a problem, not someone having one innocent glass. After that night, I started researching obsessively. I read medical journals. I read stories from adults with fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. I read about the long-term impacts. Did you know that even moderate drinking can affect IQ, attention span, and emotional regulation? That kids with FASD are more likely to end up in the criminal justice system or struggle with addiction themselves? I found this one story that absolutely haunted me. A woman wrote about how her mother drank during pregnancy, and she'd spent her whole life struggling with learning disabilities, anger issues, and difficulty holding jobs. She said, "My mother's choice to drink for 9 months has affected every single day of my entire life. I'm 34 years old, and I still can't fully support myself because of brain damage that was completely preventable." That story broke me, because what if that ends up being Amanda's baby? What if 30 years from now, there's a person out there struggling every single day because I knew what was happening and did nothing? I tried to think of other options. I really did. I considered talking to Amanda's mom, but Amanda's family is super private and would have probably just accused me of stirring up drama. Contacting her doctor, but I didn't know who her doctor was, and they probably couldn't tell me anything due to privacy laws anyway. Organizing an intervention with friends, but everyone else either didn't believe me or thought I was overreacting. Waiting until after the baby was born to see if there were any issues, but by then any damage would already be done. Every option I came up with seemed either ineffective or too late. CPS seemed like the only agency with actual authority to investigate and potentially protect this baby. The day I found Amanda drunk at 9 months pregnant, I was supposed to drop off some baby clothes I'd bought. I'd sent her 3 texts over 4 hours and gotten no response, which was weird because she was on maternity leave and usually responded quickly. I got this terrible gut feeling something was wrong. When I walked in and saw her like that, I literally thought I might throw up. She was so drunk she could barely focus her eyes. She kept saying things that didn't make sense, laughing at nothing, stumbling when she tried to walk. And her stomach was huge. She looked like she could go into labor at any second. The wine bottles weren't even hidden. They were right there on the coffee table, like she'd given up pretending. Like she'd decided she didn't care anymore. When Marcus got there and defended her, when he acted like I was the problem for being concerned, that's when I knew this was beyond what I could handle as a friend. This wasn't about Amanda making a personal choice anymore. This was about a baby who couldn't protect themselves. I sat in my car after Marcus kicked me out, and I literally shook for an hour. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold my phone. I kept thinking about that baby, about what the alcohol was doing to their developing brain right at that moment. And I called CPS. The woman I spoke to was calm and professional. She asked specific questions. How much had I seen Amanda drink? Over what period of time? Had I witnessed intoxication? Were there any other concerns about the home environment? I answered everything honestly. She said they'd send someone to do a welfare check and assessment. I didn't think it would all happen so fast. I thought maybe they'd call Amanda, schedule a visit, give her a chance to explain. I didn't know they'd show up the next day. I didn't know it would cause her to go into early labor 2 days later. But even knowing how it all played out, I don't know what I'd do differently. Because that baby is here now, she's real, and she deserves a fighting chance at a healthy life. What makes this all so much worse is that I can't even check on how the baby's doing. I don't know if she's showing any signs of FASD yet. Apparently, some symptoms don't become obvious until the child is older. I don't know if Amanda is sober now. I don't know if the counseling is helping. All I know is what people tell me in angry messages, that I'm a terrible person, that I should be ashamed, that Amanda has postpartum depression and it's my fault, that I destroyed a family. My therapist? Yes, I had to start seeing a therapist because I'm having panic attacks now, says I was in an impossible situation. She says I did what I thought was right to protect a vulnerable baby. But she also acknowledges that the consequences have been devastating, and it's okay to grieve the friendship I lost. My sister keeps reminding me that CPS wouldn't have found evidence of alcohol exposure if I'd been completely wrong. She says the fact that they're requiring counseling and monitoring means they determined there was legitimate concern. That should make me feel better, but it doesn't. Because at the end of the day, I lost my best friend. 10 years of friendship gone. And I did it knowingly, deliberately, because I thought it was the right thing to do. So that's where I am. Isolated, hated, and completely unsure if I'm a hero or a villain in this story. The week after Amanda came home from the hospital with the baby was absolute hell. I'm talking a level of social destruction I didn't even know was possible. It started with Jess. She called me 3 days after the birth, and I actually thought maybe she was calling to hear my side of things. I was so naive. "Sarah, I need you to understand something," she said, her voice cold. "What you did was unforgivable." Amanda called me from the hospital sobbing, telling me that CPS had interviewed her while she was in labor. Do you understand how traumatic that was? She was in active labor, terrified about her premature baby, and she had to answer questions about her drinking like she was some kind of criminal. "Jess, I didn't know they'd—" "You didn't know? You called CPS on a pregnant woman and didn't think about the consequences?" Amanda is one of the strongest people I know, and I watched her completely break down. She was hyperventilating, couldn't even hold her baby because she was so upset. The nurses had to give her something to calm down. I was trying to protect the baby. The baby is fine, Sarah. She's small, but she's healthy. The doctors said the early labor was likely due to stress. Stress you caused. So congratulations. Your little crusade actually hurt the baby you claim you were trying to protect. That conversation ended with Jess telling me she couldn't be friends with someone who would betray another woman's trust like that. She said she felt sick that she'd ever confided in me about anything, knowing I was apparently the type of person who'd run to authorities instead of supporting my friends. Then came the Instagram post. Amanda's sister, Melissa, posted this long thing with a photo of Amanda in the hospital bed looking exhausted and sad, holding the baby. The caption said, "My sister just gave birth to a beautiful baby girl under the most traumatic circumstances imaginable. Instead of celebrating this miracle, our family is dealing with the fallout of a malicious CPS report filed by someone we thought was family. To the person who did this, you didn't save anyone. You traumatized a new mother, caused premature labor, and brought unnecessary government involvement into a private medical matter. I hope you can live with yourself. Trust women, Tagao, my body, my choice, Chatao support moms." The post got over 400 likes. The comments were brutal. People I didn't even know were tagging me, calling me out by name. Someone created a burner account just to DM me screenshots of all the comments calling me a Karen, a pregnancy police, a forced birth mentality person, and a misogynist. That last one really got me. I'm a feminist. I believe in bodily autonomy. But how is protecting a baby from alcohol exposure anti-feminist? How is that the same thing as controlling women's reproductive choices? My friend group chat, the one with like 15 of us who'd all been friends since college, erupted. I watched the messages roll in, nobody saying anything directly to me, but all clearly about me, Maya. I just can't believe someone would weaponize CPS like that, Derek. Apparently pregnancy gives everyone the right to police your body. Tom. Amanda is the sweetest person ever, and she's being treated like an unfit mother. Rachel. The stress of all this probably did more harm than anything else could have. I tried to defend myself. I sent a message saying, I understand you're all upset, but I watched Amanda drink heavily while pregnant multiple times. I was genuinely concerned for the baby's health and safety. The response was immediate and vicious. Maya. Oh, so now you're a doctor? You know better than Amanda's actual medical professionals. Derek. Lots of cultures around the world drink during pregnancy. It's only Americans who are so uptight about it. Rachel. You know what's actually harmful to babies? Stress, poverty, lack of health care, not a glass of wine. Get some perspective. Someone I barely knew, a guy named Chris who was friends with Marcus, sent me a private message. You're a jealous, bitter person who couldn't stand to see Amanda happy. Everyone knows you never liked Marcus. This was your way of trying to ruin their family. It's pathetic. That message broke something in me, because as much as I wanted to deny it, there was this tiny voice in my head asking, was he even a little bit right? Did my dislike of Marcus play into this? Would I have reported it if Amanda had been single or married to someone I liked better? I spent 3 days barely eating, just lying in my sister's guest room, spiraling. My sister, Kate, 32F, finally sat me down and made me talk to her. Sarah, you need to tell me exactly what you saw. Not what you think happened, but what you actually witnessed. So I told her everything. Every incident, every conversation, the bottles, the intoxication. When I finished, Kate was quiet for a long time. Okay, here's what I think, she finally said. You were in an impossible situation, and you made a really hard call. But Sarah, you have to understand, even if you were 100% right about the drinking, people are going to hate you for this. Nobody wants to believe their friend would hurt their baby. It's easier to believe you're a liar or that you overreacted. But CPS found evidence. I know, but people don't want to hear that. They want to believe Amanda is a victim and you're a villain. That's the story that makes sense to them. The next day, I got a call from my boss, Jennifer. Sarah, we need to talk about something. I received an email from someone claiming to be a concerned member of the community. They said you filed a false CPS report against a friend and that you have a pattern of stirring up trouble and betraying confidences. My heart dropped. Jennifer, that's not true. I mean, I did file a report, but it wasn't false. And I've never... I don't need the details of your personal life, she cut me off. But I need you to understand that this kind of drama can't bleed into your professional life. We have a reputation to maintain. I wanted to scream. How was I supposed to control what other people said about me? But I just said, I understand. It won't be a problem. Except it was already a problem. 2 of my coworkers had mutual friends with Amanda, and suddenly I was getting cold shoulders in the office. Someone left a printout of an article about false CPS reports on my desk. The article was highlighted with a note that said, educational reading. Update. Yesterday, something happened that made everything even worse. I ran into Amanda's mom, Patricia, at the grocery store. I actually saw her first and tried to duck into another aisle, but she'd already seen me. Sarah. Her voice was ice. Mrs. Patterson, don't. Just don't. She was shaking, her eyes filled with tears. Do you have any idea what you've done to my daughter? She's not sleeping. She's barely eating. She's terrified CPS is going to take her baby away. She's having panic attacks every time someone knocks on the door. I never wanted. She's on antidepressants now. Did you know that? Postpartum depression, triggered by the trauma you caused. And now she feels guilty about taking medication while breastfeeding, so she's formula feeding, which makes her feel like she's failing as a mother. All because you decided you knew better than her doctor, better than her, better than everyone. Mrs. Patterson, I saw her drinking multiple times. I saw her drunk at 9 months pregnant. What was I supposed to do? Her face changed then. Something shifted. You saw what you wanted to see? Amanda told me about that night. She'd taken a sleep aid her doctor prescribed because she wasn't sleeping well in her 3rd trimester. It made her groggy and disoriented. But you saw wine bottles and jumped to conclusions. Wait, what? She was drunk. She was slurring her words she could barely stand. She was having a reaction to medication on an empty stomach, Sarah. But you saw what you expected to see because you'd already decided she had a drinking problem. I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. What about all the other times? The baby shower, the dinners, What other times? The ones where she drank sparkling cider and you convinced yourself it was alcohol. The ones where you snooped through her recycling to find evidence that didn't exist? Sarah, Amanda doesn't drink. She hasn't had a drop of alcohol since she found out she was pregnant. Her doctor confirmed that to CPS, by the way. Blood tests, everything. Clean. That can't be. CPS found evidence of potential past exposure, which could mean a dozen things. Exposure to someone else's drinking, secondhand exposure, or even trace amounts that happened before she knew she was pregnant. They didn't find evidence of ongoing drinking, but the damage is done. My daughter has PTSD now from having CPS investigate her, and it's all because of you. She walked away, leaving me standing there with my groceries, my whole world tilting. I immediately called Kate when I got to my car. She's lying, right? She has to be lying. I know what I saw. Sarah, do you absolutely know? Beyond any doubt? And that's when I started to really, truly panic. Because what if I was wrong? What if Amanda really was drinking sparkling cider and I was so convinced she was lying that I misinterpreted everything? What if that night she really was just having a bad reaction to medication? But no, I saw the wine bottles. I saw her pour the wine that first night. I didn't imagine that. Did I? I went home and looked at the photos I'd taken of the bottles at the baby shower. I'd taken them quickly, not really focusing. Now, looking closer, I could see. They were champagne bottles, yes. But there was also sparkling cider in the same brand in the photo. Had I just assumed the empties were champagne? I started second-guessing everything. Every memory felt unreliable now. Had I been so sure she was drinking that I'd manufactured evidence in my mind? Then I got a message from Tom, from the friend group. Hey, I know everyone's mad at you, but I wanted to give you some information. Marcus told Derek that Amanda's really struggling. She's not bonding with the baby well because she associates the baby with all this trauma. The CPS visits are ongoing. They come every week now. Amanda has to take random drug and alcohol tests. She feels like she's being treated like an addict when she never did anything wrong. Derek said Marcus is talking about suing you for defamation and emotional distress. Sue me? I could barely afford my rent. How would I afford a lawsuit? Also, Tom continued, I have to be honest with you. I voted to kick you out of the friend group permanently. Everyone did. We took a vote. It was unanimous. I'm sorry, but after what you did, none of us feel comfortable having you around. We can't trust you. Unanimous. 15 people I'd known for years, who'd been at my birthday parties, who I'd supported through breakups and job losses and family deaths, all of them, every single one, decided I was no longer worthy of their friendship. That night, I got a Facebook message from someone I didn't know. Hi, Sarah. My name is Bethany. I'm Amanda's cousin. I wanted to reach out because I think you should know something. Amanda tried to hurt herself 2 days ago. Marcus found her in time and she's okay, but she'd taken a bunch of pills. She left a note saying she couldn't live with everyone thinking she was a bad mother and that her baby would be better off without her. I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't catch my breath. She's getting help now, Bethany continued, but her doctors say the triggering event was the CPS investigation. I know you thought you were helping, but you need to understand the consequences of what you did. A woman almost died. A baby almost lost her mother. I hope you can live with that. I couldn't respond. I just stared at the message for hours. My therapist squeezed me in for an emergency session the next day. I told her everything: the grocery store encounter, the lawsuit threat, the suicide attempt. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with yourself. Is there any possibility you misinterpreted what you saw? I don't know anymore. I was so sure. But now everyone is telling me I was wrong, and I'm looking at the evidence I thought I had, and it's not as clear as I remembered. Okay, let's say, hypothetically, you were wrong. What would that mean? It would mean I destroyed my best friend's life over nothing. It would mean I caused her to go into early labor, to develop PTSD and postpartum depression, to attempt suicide, all because I was paranoid and judgmental. And if you were right, then I saved a baby from potential lifelong damage. But everyone hates me because the truth is uncomfortable, and nobody wants to believe a pregnant woman would endanger her baby. Both of those realities are possible. The question is, which one can you live with? I didn't have an answer. 2 days ago, I got a letter. An actual physical letter sent to my sister's address where I've been staying. It was from Amanda. My hands shook as I opened it. Her handwriting, the same handwriting I'd seen on birthday cards and notes for 10 years. Sarah, I don't know if I'll send this. I've written it 17 times and thrown it away 16. But I need to say something even if you never read it. What you did broke me. Not just the CPS report, though that was traumatic beyond words, but the fact that you, my best friend, someone I trusted more than anyone, could think so little of me, could believe I would hurt my baby. You want to know the truth? I did drink. Once. 1 glass of wine at 14 weeks before I knew better. I felt so guilty afterward that I confessed to my doctor, crying. She told me that 1 glass that early was unlikely to cause any issues, but I never forgave myself. That's the past exposure CPS found. I told them about it myself during the investigation because I was terrified they'd find out some other way and think I was lying. Every other time you thought you saw me drinking? Sparkling cider, non-alcoholic beer, mocktails. I had terrible heartburn my whole pregnancy and regular soda made it worse, so I drank a lot of fancy carbonated drinks. But you'd already decided I was a drunk, so everything looked like evidence to you. That night you found me drunk? I'd taken Unisom, a sleep aid my doctor prescribed. I took it on an empty stomach because I'd been too nauseous to eat dinner. It hit me hard, made me dizzy and confused. I was trying to get to the couch when you burst in. The wine bottles? Marcus's from the weekend. He'd left them out, and I was too out of it to care. But you didn't ask questions. You didn't give me the benefit of the doubt. You went straight to the nuclear option. Do you know what it's like to be interviewed by CPS while you're in labor? To have someone asking if you're an alcoholic while you're trying to breathe through contractions? To see your newborn baby for the first time and wonder if they're going to take her away? I'm on 3 different medications now. I can't sleep without having nightmares about losing my daughter. I'm terrified to have a glass of wine at dinner ever again, even though I'm not pregnant anymore. Because what if someone sees me and reports me? What if they use it as evidence I'm an unfit mother? My daughter is beautiful and healthy, no thanks to you. In fact, the doctors said the early labor might have affected her development. She has some minor feeding issues they're monitoring. All because you stressed me out so badly my body went into crisis mode. I keep trying to understand why you did this. The only explanation I can come up with is that you never really trusted me. Maybe you always thought I was a mess who needed you to save me. Or maybe you were jealous that I had what you didn't, a husband, a baby, a family. Either way, you're dead to me. And I need you to understand that. Don't try to contact me. Don't try to explain. Don't show up at my house or send gifts for the baby. You are not welcome in our lives ever again. The only reason I'm writing this is so you know exactly what you did. So you can't tell yourself some story where you're the hero. You almost killed me, Sarah. When I took those pills, I really wanted to die. And part of me still does, every day. That's your legacy. Amanda. I've read that letter probably 50 times. Each time I feel like I'm drowning. Because if she's telling the truth, and I'm starting to think she is, then I'm the villain in this story. I'm the monster everyone says I am. But there's this tiny part of me that still remembers what I saw, what I thought I saw, and wonders if she's rewriting history to make herself look better. If she's the one lying to protect herself. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know if I saved a baby or destroyed a family. I don't know if I'm brave or paranoid. I don't know if I can ever forgive myself, no matter which version is true. All I know is that I've lost everything, and I'm not sure if it was for something or for nothing. The social media fallout got worse before it got better. Actually, scratch that. It never got better. Someone created a Twitter thread about me. They didn't use my name, but they included enough details that anyone who knew the situation would recognize it. The thread went semi-viral in our city's community. Thread about how concerned friends can actually be controlling, judgmental people who weaponize systems against women. A story about pregnancy, bodily autonomy, and betrayal. The thread had like 3,000 retweets. People who didn't even know me or Amanda were sharing it, adding their own stories about being judged during pregnancy, about people calling CPS over petty disputes, about how difficult it is to be a mother when everyone thinks they know better than you. One comment that got hundreds of likes said, "This is exactly why women don't ask for help. Because the moment you show any vulnerability, someone decides you're unfit and calls the authorities. The friend in this story is a Karen and should be ashamed." Another popular one. Imagine going through 9 months of pregnancy, dealing with all the physical and emotional changes, and your best friend is secretly building a case against you. Disgusting. My name got doxed in the replies. Someone found my LinkedIn, my Instagram, which I'd made private, but they shared old screenshots, even my workplace. People were calling my office, asking if they knew they employed someone who abuses CPS to harass new mothers. Jennifer called me in again. "Sarah, this has gone beyond a personal matter. We've received multiple phone calls and emails. Someone left a 1-star review on our Google page mentioning you by name. I'm going to have to ask you to take a leave of absence while this dies down." A leave of absence? Jennifer, I didn't do anything wrong at work. It's not about right or wrong. It's about the business. I'm sorry, Sarah, but this is the best solution for everyone right now. So I was essentially suspended. Not fired, but not working either. My income cut off right when I needed it most because I was paying for therapy, staying with my sister, and trying to contribute to expenses, and potentially facing a lawsuit. Speaking of the lawsuit, Marcus's lawyer sent me a formal letter. They were suing me for defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and something called malicious prosecution. They were asking for $150,000 in damages. $150,000. I make $42,000 a year at my job. Or I did, before the leave of absence. I couldn't afford a lawyer, so I went to a free legal clinic. The attorney who consulted with me looked over the letter and said, "Okay, here's the situation. They might have a case if they can prove you knowingly filed a false report, but if you genuinely believed what you reported, even if you were wrong, you're probably protected. So I might win. You might not lose in court, but defending yourself will still cost thousands in legal fees, and the stress alone could break you. Sometimes the process is the punishment. I'd recommend trying to settle if they're open to it." Settle? With what money? I owned nothing of value except my car, and I needed that to get to work, if I ever got to go back to work. My sister Kate had been supportive, but even she was starting to crack under the pressure. Her husband, Mike, pulled me aside one evening. "Sarah, I need to be real with you. This situation is affecting Kate's mental health. She's losing sleep, she's stressed, and some of her friends are asking why she's supporting you. I'm not saying you need to leave, but we need to know there's an end in sight here." "I'm trying, Mike. I'm looking for a new apartment, but with the leave of absence, nobody will rent to me without proof of income. Maybe you need to consider apologizing. Just reaching out to Amanda and Marcus, saying you're sorry, seeing if you can make peace." The idea made me feel sick. Apologize for what? If I apologize, I'm admitting I was wrong. And if I was wrong, then I destroyed someone's life for no reason. But if I was right? If you were right, then why does everyone think you're wrong? Mike asked. Not meanly, just genuinely asking. That question haunted me. I started going through old text messages between Amanda and me, looking for, I don't know what, proof that I was right, evidence that she had a drinking problem. Instead, I found messages that made me look like the crazy one. Amanda, 5 months pregnant. Just had the best mocktail at that new bar. Felt like I was actually out with adults instead of just being the pregnant friend nursing a water well, me. Nice. How are you feeling? Amanda, good. Doctor says baby is perfect. I'm finally starting to show. Where in that conversation did I get the idea she was drinking? Had I twisted everything in my mind? I found another one from month 7. Me. Want to get dinner Friday? Amanda, yes. I'm dying for sushi. Well, cooked sushi lol, and maybe some virgin cocktails so I can pretend I'm fancy. Me. Sounds perfect. She'd literally told me she was drinking virgin cocktails. She'd been open about it. Why didn't I believe her? Or maybe she was covering. Maybe she knew I was suspicious and was overcorrecting in text messages to throw me off? God, I was driving myself insane. I decided to reach out to one person who might give me a straight answer, Amanda's doctor. I knew I couldn't get medical information, but maybe I could at least. I called the OB/GYN office. Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm calling about a patient, Amanda Richardson. I'm not asking for private information, but I filed a CPS report because I was concerned she was drinking during pregnancy, and now everyone is telling me I was wrong. Can you at least tell me if there were any concerns noted in her file about alcohol use?" The receptionist was quiet for a moment. "Ma'am, I can't confirm or deny whether someone is a patient here, and I definitely can't discuss any medical information. If you have concerns about a child's welfare, you did the right thing contacting CPS. Beyond that, I can't help you. But I'm sorry, ma'am. I have to go." Dead end. I tried one more thing. I called the CPS worker who'd taken my original report. She couldn't tell me much, but she said, "Without giving specifics, I can tell you that when we investigate, we look at the totality of circumstances. Medical, records, interviews, observations, drug tests if warranted. Our goal is child safety, not punishment. So if you found evidence of exposure, that could mean many things. It could be secondhand exposure. It could be historical use before pregnancy was known. It could be a false positive. We don't make determinations based on one piece of evidence. Can you tell me if the baby is okay? I can't discuss specific cases, but I can tell you that most babies born to mothers who consumed any alcohol during pregnancy are completely healthy. The risk is there, but it's not a guarantee of problems." So basically, I'd rolled the dice on Amanda's life, our friendship, and my entire social existence, and I might have been wrong. Or I might have been right, but it didn't matter because the baby was fine anyway. The doubt was eating me alive. Last week, something happened that made me question everything even more. I ran into Derek from our friend group at a coffee shop. He saw me and actually came over instead of ignoring me. "Sarah, can we talk?" We sat down, and he looked uncomfortable. "Look, I voted to kick you out of the group. I want to be clear about that up front, but I've been thinking about something, and I feel like I need to tell you." "Okay." About 8 months ago, before all this happened, I was over at Amanda and Marcus's place for a game night. Amanda had gone to bed early because she wasn't feeling well. Marcus got pretty drunk, and he started talking about how frustrated he was with Amanda's pregnancy. My heart started racing. What did he say? He said Amanda was being paranoid about everything. What she ate, what she did, even taking medication for sleep or anxiety. He said his mom drank during pregnancy with him and his siblings, and they were all fine. He said American pregnancy rules were ridiculous, and that Amanda needed to relax and stop stressing about every little thing. "Why are you telling me this now?" Derek looked down at his coffee. "Because after everything that happened, I remembered that conversation, and I wondered, I don't know. I wondered if maybe Marcus was pressuring her to drink, or if there was more to the story than we all thought. But then I felt guilty for even thinking that because Marcus has been so supportive of Amanda through all this, and she's saying nothing happened, so... But you still wondered? Yeah, I still wondered. And I thought you should know that at least one person doesn't think you're completely crazy, even if I can't publicly support you. He left after that, and I sat there with my cold coffee, my mind reeling. What if Marcus had been pressuring Amanda to drink? What if I'd seen real wine bottles because he was drinking and she felt pressured to join him? What if she was protecting him now because she was scared of him, or because admitting it would make everything even more complicated? Or what if I was just desperate to justify my actions and was now creating conspiracy theories where none existed? I wanted to investigate more, to talk to other people who'd been around them, but who was going to talk to me? I was persona non grata. Nobody would even respond to my messages. My therapist said I needed to accept that I might never know the full truth, that sometimes we have to make decisions with incomplete information and live with the consequences. But how do you live with possibly destroying someone's life? How do you live with possibly saving a baby but being hated for it? How do you live in the gray area where you can't be sure if you're a hero or a villain? The nightmares started around this time. I'd dream that I was at Amanda's house, watching her drink, but when I tried to call for help, no one would listen. Or I'd dream that Amanda's baby grew up with severe disabilities, and everyone blamed me for not doing more. Or I'd dream that the baby was perfectly healthy and Amanda was dead, and it was my fault. I'd wake up crying, my sister knocking on my door asking if I was okay. I wasn't okay. I'm still not okay. Yesterday, I got a message from a number I didn't recognize. "Hi, Sarah. This is Bethany again, Amanda's cousin. I feel bad about my last message. I was angry, and I wanted you to hurt like Amanda was hurting. But I need to be honest with you about something. Amanda's drinking wasn't as innocent as she's claiming. I saw her drink at family events during her pregnancy. I didn't think it was my place to say anything, and I convinced myself it was rare enough not to matter. But it wasn't just once at 14 weeks. I'm not saying she was drunk all the time, but it was more than she's admitting. I can't say this publicly because Amanda is family and she's struggling. But I thought you should know that you're not crazy. I'm sorry everyone's treating you like you are." I stared at that message for an hour. Finally, someone confirming what I saw. But it was too late. The damage was done. And Bethany wouldn't go public with it, which meant I still looked like the villain. I sent back, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I have a daughter, and if someone saw her being hurt and didn't say anything, I'd never forgive them." "You tried to protect Amanda's baby?" "Yeah, maybe you could have handled it better, but you tried. That matters." "Then why won't you tell everyone else?" "Because Amanda is my family, and she's suffering, and adding to that won't help anyone now. The baby is here and she's okay. Maybe just accept that you did what you thought was right and let it go. Let it go. Like it's that simple. Like I can just move on from losing my best friend, my entire social circle, my job, and my reputation. Like I can just accept being the villain in everyone's story and be okay with it. I don't know how to let it go. I don't know how to live with this. All I know is that I've lost everything, and I'm not sure if it was for something or for nothing. 3 months have passed since I wrote the last update, and everything has changed in ways I never could have predicted. I'm writing this from a completely different place, literally and emotionally. I moved to a different city 2 months ago, got a new job, and I'm slowly trying to rebuild my life. But before I get into where I am now, I need to tell you what happened that finally brought this nightmare to some kind of resolution. It started with a phone call I never expected to receive. 6 weeks ago at 2 a.m., my phone rang. It was Marcus. I almost didn't answer. My hands were shaking as I picked up. "Hello? Sarah." His voice sounded broken. "I need to talk to you. Can you meet me tomorrow, alone?" Every instinct told me this was a terrible idea. "Marcus, your lawyer said," "Forget the lawyer. Forget the lawsuit. I need to talk to you about Amanda. Please." Something in his voice made me agree. We met at a coffee shop the next day, in a neighborhood where neither of us would run into anyone we knew. Marcus looked terrible. He'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes, and his hands shook as he held his coffee cup. When he started talking, everything I thought I knew shattered. "Amanda's in rehab," he said quietly. "She checked herself in 3 weeks ago." I couldn't breathe. "What?" "For alcohol dependency. After her suicide attempt, her therapist finally got her to admit she had a problem." not just during pregnancy, for years, since before I even met her. The coffee shop seemed to tilt. But she said, everyone said I was wrong, that she never drank during pregnancy except once. She lied to everyone, to me, to her family, to CPS, to herself. Marcus's voice cracked. Sarah, you were right about all of it, and I'm so fucking sorry. He told me everything, how Amanda had been a functional alcoholic since college, how she'd hidden it so well that even he didn't realize the extent of it until recently, how she'd drink throughout her entire pregnancy, sometimes a glass or two a night, sometimes more, how he'd enabled it because he grew up in a household where drinking during pregnancy was normalized, and he genuinely didn't think it was that dangerous. The night you found her drunk, that wasn't a sleep medication. She'd had most of a bottle of wine. I came home and lied for her because I always lied for her, because I thought I was protecting her. The baby, I could barely get the words out. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. Lily. We named her Lily. She's showing some signs, developmental delays. They're not sure yet if it's FASD or just from being premature, but her pediatrician thinks it's likely alcohol-related. She might need early intervention therapy, special education support as she gets older. We won't know the full extent for years. I started crying right there in the coffee shop. For Lily, for Amanda, for all of us. When Amanda got out of the hospital after the suicide attempt, her therapist specialized in postpartum issues. During their sessions, everything started coming out. The drinking, the lying, the guilt. Amanda had convinced herself that if she just denied it hard enough, it would become true. That if everyone believed her version, then the drinking hadn't really happened. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you deserve to know you weren't crazy. Because I need to apologize for threatening to sue you, for turning everyone against you, for making you think you destroyed our family when really, you were trying to save it. He paused. And because Amanda wants to talk to you. She asked me to see if you'd be willing to meet with her when she gets out of rehab next week. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at him for everything he'd put me through. Part of me wanted to forgive him immediately because he was finally telling the truth. Mostly, I just felt exhausted. I need to think about it, I said. I understand. I'm dropping the lawsuit, and I'm going to tell people the truth. Not everyone, not publicly, but our close friends. They deserve to know that we lied, and you were trying to help. He left, and I sat there for another hour, trying to process everything. The next few days were surreal. Derek called me, apologizing profusely. Apparently Marcus had talked to him and a few others, admitted that I'd been right, that they'd all been defending Amanda without knowing the full story. I feel like such an asshole, Derek said. We believed what we wanted to believe, and you paid the price for telling the truth. But not everyone changed their minds. When word started spreading that Amanda was in rehab and that maybe I'd been right, the friend group split into factions. Some people apologized, others doubled down, saying that even if I was right, I'd gone about it the wrong way and still deserved the consequences. A few people said that Amanda's addiction wasn't my business, and I should have minded my own. Jess sent me a text. I heard about Amanda. I don't know what to say except, I'm sorry I didn't believe you. But also, I can't just forget the last few months and pretend we're okay. I don't know if we can be friends again. I understood. The damage was done. Even being vindicated didn't erase what we'd all been through. 7 days after Marcus's confession, I met Amanda at a park. She was thinner, pale, but there was something different in her eyes. A clarity that hadn't been there before. We sat on a bench, not touching, barely looking at each other. "I don't expect you to forgive me," Amanda started. "I don't even know if I can forgive myself. But I need to tell you the truth, even though it's 3 months too late." She told me everything. How she'd started drinking heavily in college to deal with anxiety and social pressure. How it had become her coping mechanism for everything: stress, sadness, even happiness. How when she got pregnant, she'd tried to stop, but couldn't. How the guilt of drinking while pregnant made her drink more to cope with the guilt. A vicious cycle. "Every time you questioned me, I panicked. I couldn't admit it out loud because that would make it real. So I gaslit you. I lied to everyone. I convinced myself that you were the problem, not me. The letter you sent me," I said, "was full of lies. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I blamed you for everything because I couldn't face that I was destroying my own life. When CPS came, when I went into early labor, when Lily was born premature, I told myself it was all your fault. Because if it was your fault, then I didn't have to take responsibility." She told me about the suicide attempt, how she'd been drinking again just days after giving birth, hiding bottles, lying to Marcus, how the weight of everything, the CPS investigation, the lies, the fear about Lily's health, had become too much. The pills were a cry for help and a genuine attempt to end it all at once. Marcus found me and got me to the hospital. After that, I couldn't keep lying. My therapist helped me see that I was an alcoholic, that I needed real help, not just therapy sessions where I blamed everyone else for my problems. "How's Lily?" I asked quietly. Amanda's face crumpled. "She's beautiful, and she's struggling. She has trouble feeding. She's behind on some milestones. Every time I look at her, I see what I did, what I chose to do every single day of my pregnancy. I chose alcohol over her safety, and now she has to live with the consequences of my choices for her entire life." We both cried then. I reached for her hand, and she grabbed it like a lifeline. "I'm in AA now," she said. "I have a sponsor. I'm working the steps. One of them is making amends. I know I can never make this up to you, Sarah. You lost everything because you tried to protect my daughter when I wouldn't. You were a better mother to Lily than I was, and I hate myself for what I put you through." "I don't want you to hate yourself," I said. "I want you to get better. For Lily." "I'm trying. Marcus and I are in couples counseling too. Our marriage might not survive this, honestly. He's angry at me for lying, angry at himself for enabling me, angry at the whole situation. But we're trying to figure out how to co-parent Lily in a healthy way, whatever that looks like." We talked for 2 hours. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the trauma or bring back my old life. But it gave me something I desperately needed: validation that I wasn't crazy, that my instincts had been right, that I'd done the hard thing for the right reasons. Before we left, Amanda asked, "Can you forgive me? Eventually?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "I want to. But I'm not there yet. You didn't just lie to me. You destroyed my reputation, my career, my friendships. You let me think I was losing my mind. That's going to take time to process." "I understand. Take all the time you need. And Sarah, thank you for caring about Lily when I was too sick to care about her properly. She's alive and getting help because you spoke up. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure she knows that." The weeks after that conversation were complicated. Some people in our friend group welcomed me back with open arms. Others remained distant or hostile. The friend group itself basically dissolved. Too much had happened. Too many sides had been taken. too much trust had been broken on all sides. My job offered to let me come back, but honestly, I couldn't go back to that office where people had believed the worst about me, where I'd been forced to take leave because of rumors and harassment. I found a new job in a new city and started over. Kate was relieved when I moved out, though she'd never say it. Mike told me privately that the whole situation had put enormous stress on their marriage, and while they didn't blame me, they were glad to have their life back to normal. My therapist helped me work through the complex feelings: anger at Amanda for lying, anger at Marcus for enabling, anger at my friends for believing lies without questioning, but also compassion for Amanda's struggle with addiction, understanding that alcoholism is a disease, recognition that the whole situation was more complicated than good guys and bad guys. "You did the right thing in an impossible situation," my therapist said, "and you suffered for it. Both things can be true." I still have nightmares sometimes. I still feel a wave of anxiety when I see a pregnant woman with a drink, wondering if I should say something, knowing I probably won't because I can't go through this again. I haven't met Lily. Amanda invited me, but I'm not ready. Maybe someday, when she's older, I'll get to know her. Or maybe Amanda and I will never fully reconcile, and that's okay too. Some bridges burn and can't be rebuilt, even when everyone involved was doing their broken best. The lawsuit was formally dropped last month. Marcus sent me a check for $5,000 as an apology for the legal stress and the harassment. I almost didn't cash it, but my therapist pointed out that I'd incurred real costs: therapy, lost wages, moving expenses, and accepting the money wasn't admitting anything other than that I'd been harmed. I used some of it to pay off debt and some to make a donation to an organization that supports children with FASD. It felt like the right thing to do. So here's where I land on everything, after months of hell and a lot of therapy. Was I right to call CPS? Yes. Amanda was drinking during pregnancy, enough to potentially harm her baby, and as it turns out, it did cause harm. Someone needed to intervene. Could I have handled it better? Maybe. Maybe I should have tried harder to talk to Amanda first, or staged an intervention, or found another way. But I genuinely don't know what other option would have worked with someone in such deep denial. Should I have had to sacrifice everything to do the right thing? No. The fact that our society punishes whistleblowers and people who speak uncomfortable truths is fucked up. The fact that I lost my job, my friends, and my reputation for trying to protect a baby is wrong. Is Amanda a villain? No. She's a person with an addiction who made terrible choices that hurt her daughter. She's working on getting better, and she'll have to live with the consequences forever. Is Marcus a villain? No. He's a man who enabled his wife's addiction out of ignorance and misplaced loyalty. He's also working on being better. Are my former friends villains? No. They believed their friend over someone making serious accusations. They were wrong, but I understand why they made that choice. Am I a hero? I don't feel like one. Heroes don't end up isolated and traumatized. But I did protect Lily as best I could, and that matters. The truth is messier than hero and villain. We were all flawed people in a terrible situation, making choices with incomplete information and our own baggage coloring our judgment. Here's what I know for sure. 1. Lily is getting early intervention services that will help her develop despite any alcohol-related damage. 2. Amanda is sober and working her program. 3. I survived something that nearly destroyed me. 4. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you everything, and you have to decide if you can live with that cost. 5. Moral certainty is a luxury most real-life situations don't offer. I think about that night I found Amanda drunk a lot. If I could go back, would I do it again? Knowing everything I know now, the fallout, the pain, the loss? Yes, I would. Because Lily deserved someone to fight for her, even if it meant losing everything else. That's what I can live with. Not being right, not being vindicated, not even being forgiven. But knowing that when I saw a vulnerable baby being harmed, I spoke up, whatever the cost. To everyone who's followed this story on Who's the Villain, AITA, thank you for listening to my side. This has been the most difficult experience of my life, and sharing it with strangers on the internet has somehow helped me process it. If you found this story engaging, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And here's my final question for you all. Leave a comment rating this situation from 0 to 10 based on who you think was most wrong here. Was it me, for calling CPS instead of handling it privately? Amanda, for drinking during pregnancy and then lying about it? Marcus, for enabling Amanda and attacking me? Our friend group, for believing lies without question? The system, for punishing someone who tried to protect a child? I genuinely want to know what you all think, because even now, even knowing the truth, I still wonder if there was a better way I could have handled this, or if impossible situations just don't have good solutions. One last thing, I started a blog about my experience navigating this situation. Not for revenge or to blast Amanda publicly, but to help other people who find themselves in similar positions. What do you do when you see something wrong and speaking up will destroy your life? How do you live with being hated for doing what you believed was right? How do you rebuild after losing everything? I don't have all the answers, but I'm figuring them out as I go. Update. As I was finishing writing this, I got a text from Amanda. She sent me a photo of Lily, now 4 months old. She's chubby and smiling, wearing a little purple onesie. The text said, "She smiled for the first time today. I wanted you to see. You're part of her story, Sarah. Thank you for caring when I couldn't." I'm crying as I write this. Not sad tears exactly, just release, relief, recognition that maybe, somehow, something good came out of all this pain. Lily is here. She's smiling. She has challenges ahead, but she has a mother who's fighting to be better and advocates who will make sure she gets what she needs. And I'm part of the reason she's being protected now. That has to count for something. So, final verdict. Am I the asshole? I'll let you decide. But I can finally say that I'm at peace with my choices, even if I'll carry the scars from this forever. To those of you who've stuck with this story through all 3 parts, thank you. Your comments, your perspectives, your own stories of impossible choices have helped me more than you know. This community of strangers became my support system when I had nowhere else to turn. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Who's the Villain? AITA. If you haven't already, and drop a comment with your rating from 0 to 10 and who you think bears the most responsibility in this situation. I'm genuinely curious to see how people judge this now that you have the full story. And if you're going through something similar, if you're facing an impossible choice where doing the right thing means losing everything, know that you're not alone. Sometimes the right thing is the hard thing. Sometimes standing up costs you dearly, but you can survive it. You can rebuild. You can find peace, even if you can't find justice. I'm living proof of that. Thank you for listening to my story. Whatever you decide about whether I'm the villain or the hero, I hope it makes you think about the gray areas in life where right and wrong aren't clear-cut, because that's where most of us actually live, in the messy middle, doing our imperfect best. Take care of yourselves. And if you see something wrong, speak up. Even if it costs you, especially if it costs you. Because that's how we protect the people who can't protect themselves. That's how we be human. Before I finish this story completely, there are some things I need to address that people have been asking about in the comments and messages I've received along the way. First, about the CPS investigation and what actually happened with Lily. I've learned a lot about FASD in the past few months, and I want to share some of that knowledge because I think it's important. Fetal alcohol spectrum disorders aren't always obvious at birth. Some babies show clear physical signs, facial abnormalities, growth issues, organ problems. Others seem fine initially, and the cognitive and behavioral effects only become apparent as they grow. Lily falls into that second category. At 4 months, she's meeting some milestones but lagging on others. She has trouble with feeding. She struggles to coordinate sucking and swallowing, which is common in babies with prenatal alcohol exposure. She's also hypersensitive to stimulation, crying intensely at sounds and lights that other babies tolerate fine. Her pediatrician, a specialist in developmental delays, says it's too early to give a formal FASD diagnosis, but the signs are concerning. Amanda sends me updates now, with my permission. It's strange, getting texts from someone who was my best friend, then my worst enemy, then... I don't know what we are now. Not friends, not enemies. 2 people bound together by a shared trauma and a baby we both care about. Last week she sent... Lily's occupational therapist says she's making progress with feeding, small victories. I tell her every day that I'm sorry, even though she can't understand me yet. Maybe someday I can explain it to her in a way that makes sense. Or maybe I'll just have to live with her knowing that her mom hurt her before she was even born. I don't always know what to say to these messages. Sometimes I just send back a heart emoji. Sometimes I don't respond at all. Amanda says that's okay, that she doesn't expect me to be her support system, but she wants me to know that Lily is real and loved and being cared for. The friend group dynamics are still complicated. Rachel reached out last month and asked if we could get coffee. I said yes, mostly out of curiosity. She apologized, but not in the way I expected. "I'm sorry I didn't believe you," she said. "But I'm also not sorry I supported Amanda. She needed people in her corner, and at the time, we didn't know the full truth. I think I did the right thing with the information I had, just like you did the right thing with the information you had." I appreciated her honesty. We're not close anymore. Too much has happened, but we're cordial. We see each other occasionally at mutual events and make polite small talk. It's awkward but survivable. Maya, on the other hand, doubled down. She sent me a long email saying that even knowing Amanda had been drinking, I was still wrong to involve CPS. That addiction is a medical issue, not a criminal one. That I should have found a way to get Amanda help without bringing government agencies into it. That the trauma of the CPS investigation probably did more harm than any amount of drinking could have. I read her email 3 times, got angry, wrote a scathing response, then deleted it and never replied. Because what's the point? We have fundamentally different views on when it's appropriate to involve authorities, on whether protecting children overrides protecting adults' privacy, on the role of intervention in addiction. Neither of us is going to change the other's mind, and I'm tired of defending my choices to people who've already decided I'm wrong. Tom surprised me. He actually became one of my few defenders in the friend group. When the truth came out, he apparently went off on some of the others for how they'd treated me. He posted on his Instagram story. He showed me a screenshot. "I owe Sarah a massive apology." We all do. She tried to protect a baby, and we destroyed her for it because it was easier than admitting our friend had a serious problem. I'm ashamed of how I acted." His post got a lot of backlash. People called him a traitor, said he was throwing Amanda under the bus, accused him of being a fair-weather friend. He told me, "I don't care. What we did to you was wrong. I'm not going to pretend otherwise just to keep the peace." Tom and I get lunch occasionally now. It's nice to have at least one person from my old life who doesn't make me feel like I have to constantly justify myself. The situation with my job is worth explaining in more detail, too. When I gave my notice at my old company, Jennifer actually seemed relieved. She said, "Sarah, I want to be honest with you. Even if all of this hadn't happened, I'm not sure you were happy here anymore. Maybe this is an opportunity for a fresh start." She was right. My new job is at a nonprofit that works with at-risk families. Ironically, part of what we do is help parents navigate the CPS system, both those who are being investigated and those who are trying to report concerns. I bring a unique perspective to the work. My boss there, Linda, knows my whole story. I was upfront about it during the interview process because I didn't want it coming out later and causing issues. She said, "The fact that you spoke up despite knowing the personal cost tells me you have integrity. That's exactly what we need here." It's healing, in a weird way, helping other people through situations like mine, teaching them how to document concerns, how to make reports responsibly, how to cope with the fallout. I'm not going to lie and say it doesn't trigger me sometimes. There are days when I have to step away from a case because it hits too close to home, but mostly it feels purposeful. The financial impact of everything has been significant. Between the months of reduced income, therapy costs, and moving expenses, I wiped out my savings and accumulated about $8,000 in credit card debt. Marcus's $5,000 helped, but I'm still digging out. I've had to make a lot of lifestyle changes: smaller apartment, no eating out, no trips, shopping at thrift stores. But honestly, the financial stress is manageable compared to the emotional cost. Money I can earn back eventually. The friendships I lost, the innocence I had about speaking up for what's right, the trust I had in people, those aren't coming back. My relationship with my sister Kate has also changed. We talk regularly, but there's a distance that wasn't there before. Mike told me once during my move, "I love you, Sarah, but having you here during all that chaos almost broke us. Kate was so stressed she wasn't sleeping. We were fighting constantly. I was worried about our kids being exposed to all the drama. I'm glad you're in a better place now, but I need you to understand that your crisis became our crisis, and it took a toll." I get it. I do. But it still hurts to know that my family felt burdened by my presence during the worst time of my life. It's made me more reluctant to ask for help now, even when I'm struggling. I don't want to be a burden again. My new therapist, I had to switch when I moved cities, has been working with me on understanding that needing support isn't the same as being a burden. That people who love you want to help, but they also have limits, and both things can be true. I've also been working through a lot of complicated feelings about Amanda's recovery. Part of me is genuinely happy she's getting help and taking responsibility. Part of me is angry that she only did it after everything exploded, after Lily was already potentially harmed, after I'd already lost everything trying to help. My therapist asked me once, if Amanda had gotten help earlier, before the CPS report, would you feel differently about all of this? The answer is yes. If Amanda had listened to me the first time I expressed concern, if she'd gotten help then, maybe everything would be different. Maybe we'd still be friends. Maybe Lily would be healthier. Maybe I wouldn't have had to be the one to force the intervention. But that's not what happened. And I'm learning to accept that I can't control other people's choices, only my own response to them. There's been some unexpected fallout I didn't anticipate. A few months ago, a journalist reached out wanting to write a story about my experience. Apparently, the Twitter thread had caught her attention, and when she dug deeper, she found multiple angles: CPS reform, pregnancy policing, addiction stigma, the cost of whistleblowing. I declined. The last thing I needed was to become a public figure in this debate. Amanda had already been through enough, and publicizing everything would just re-traumatize both of us. Plus, I knew that no matter how fair the article tried to be, it would inevitably take a side, and half the internet would hate me all over again. The journalist was disappointed but understood. She said, "Your story highlights so many important issues. It's a shame more people won't hear it." Maybe. Or maybe some stories are meant to stay private, shared only with therapists and internet strangers on AITA forums. I've thought a lot about what I would have done differently, if anything. People love to armchair quarterback these situations, saying, "You should have done X instead of Y." But they weren't there. They didn't see Amanda's defensiveness when I tried to talk to her. They didn't watch her get progressively drunk while 9 months pregnant. They didn't experience the panic of knowing something terrible was happening and feeling powerless to stop it through normal channels. Could I have tried harder before calling CPS? Maybe. Could I have organized an intervention with her family? Possibly, though her family was clearly in denial too. Could I have waited and hoped she'd stop on her own? Sure. But what if she hadn't? What if Lily had been born with more severe damage? The truth is, I did what I thought was right with the information and resources I had. That's all any of us can do. One thing I wish I'd done differently. I wish I'd documented everything better. Not just the bottles and incidents, but my attempts to help through other means. Because when everything exploded and people accused me of jumping straight to CPS without trying anything else, I couldn't prove that I'd tried talking to Amanda multiple times, that I'd expressed concern, that I'd given her chances to get help voluntarily. If I could give advice to anyone in a similar situation, it would be this: document everything. Every conversation, every incident, every attempt at intervention. Not because you're building a case, but because if things go sideways, you'll need proof that you didn't act maliciously. Also, prepare yourself for the possibility that doing the right thing will cost you everything. Really sit with that. Can you live with losing your friends, your reputation, your job, your financial stability? Because those are real possible consequences, and you need to go in with your eyes open. For me, the answer was yes. I could live with those losses if it meant protecting Lily. Barely, but yes. Not everyone could make that choice, and I don't judge them for it. The relationship between Marcus and Amanda is apparently hanging by a thread. According to updates I've gotten through Tom, they're still together but sleeping in separate bedrooms. Marcus is angry at Amanda for lying, at himself for enabling, at the whole situation. Amanda is so deep in shame and recovery work that she doesn't have much left to give to the marriage. Tom says Marcus told him, "I don't know if I can ever trust her again. Every time she says anything, I wonder if she's lying. Every time she's out of my sight, I wonder if she's drinking. It's no way to live." Part of me feels bad for Marcus. He genuinely didn't understand the risks of drinking during pregnancy. His own mother drank with all her pregnancies, and he and his siblings were fine, so he thought the American medical establishment was just being overcautious. He enabled Amanda not out of malice, but out of ignorance. But another part of me is still angry at him. He threatened to sue me for $150,000. He turned our entire friend group against me. He made those months of my life a living hell. An apology and a $5,000 check don't erase that. I'm working on forgiveness, but I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be, and maybe that's okay. The blog I mentioned has been surprisingly successful. I write anonymously, sharing my experiences and offering support to others in similar situations. I've connected with other people who reported abuse or neglect and faced social consequences for it. Teachers who reported suspected child abuse and got fired. Neighbors who called CPS and became pariahs in their communities. Family members who spoke up about elderly abuse and got cut off. There's a whole invisible community of people who did the right thing and got punished for it. We support each other, validate each other's choices, remind each other that we're not crazy or cruel. We're just people who couldn't look away when we saw harm happening. One woman who reached out to me said something that stuck with me. The world needs people who care more about being right than being liked. Thank you for being one of those people. I cried when I read that, because for so long, all I felt was regret and doubt. But she's right. Someone needed to care more about Lily's welfare than about maintaining friendships or keeping the peace. That someone was me. I've also learned to recognize that I have my own trauma from this experience. I have PTSD symptoms, hypervigilance, nightmares, panic attacks when I see pregnant women drinking even a sip of alcohol. I'm working through it in therapy, but it's slow going. Sometimes I see a pregnant woman in a restaurant, and my heart starts racing. I have to remind myself, not your business, not your fight, you can't save everyone. But the urge to say something is still there, screaming in my head. My therapist says that's normal, that after what I went through, my brain is wired to see danger everywhere, that it'll take time to recalibrate. In the meantime, I've had to set some boundaries with myself. I don't follow pregnancy forums online anymore. I don't engage in debates about drinking during pregnancy on social media. I don't watch TV shows or movies that depict it. It's too triggering, and I need to protect my own mental health. The hardest part, weirdly, has been the moral ambiguity of it all. I wanted a clean resolution. Either I was completely right and everyone apologized, or I was completely wrong and I could learn from my mistake. Instead, I got something messier. I was right about the drinking, but my intervention caused trauma. Amanda needed help, but the way she got it was traumatic. Lily is being cared for now, but she has preventable damage. Everyone lost something, but maybe Lily gained some protection. There's no neat bow to tie on this story. No clear winner or loser. Just a bunch of broken people trying to do better. I think that's the real answer to, am I the asshole? We're all the asshole in some way. I was right but tactless. Amanda was sick but destructive. Marcus was ignorant but complicit. Our friends were loyal but blind. Everyone made choices that hurt someone else, even when we were trying to do the right thing. That's what makes this situation so complex, and why I wanted to share the full story. Because life isn't like AITA posts usually are, where there's clearly a villain and a victim. Life is messy and complicated and full of impossible choices where every option hurts someone. What I can say definitively is this. I don't regret calling CPS. Even knowing everything I know now, even having lived through all the pain and loss, I would do it again. Because at the end of the day, a baby who couldn't protect herself needed someone to speak up, and I was that someone. That has to be enough. So to wrap this all up, thank you for reading my story. Thank you for the supportive comments and even the critical ones that made me think. Thank you for being here with me through this journey. Please like and subscribe to Who's the Villain? AITA. If you found this story meaningful, drop your rating from 0 to 10 in the comments, along with who you think bears the most responsibility. I'm genuinely interested in seeing how different people judge this situation. And if you're facing your own impossible choice right now, speak up. It might cost you everything, but silence costs more. Trust yourself. Trust your instincts. And know that even if everyone hates you for it, you can survive that. You can rebuild. I'm living proof. Take care, everyone. And remember, the world needs people who care enough to speak uncomfortable truths, even when it's hard. Maybe especially when it's hard. That's how we be human.